Hi, you guys, Erin here. I am back with another moon update for you. Today, I'm going to be talking about a very, very powerful full moon we have coming up here on Sunday, July 21st. This full moon peaks at 3:17 a.m. Pacific time and takes place in the sign of Capricorn. Now, this is our second full moon in the sign of Capricorn for this year. We had another one back in June, which is pretty rare. We don't always get to have two full moons in the same zodiac sign in a year. But that one going back into June, that was at 1 degree Capricorn. What's so wild about this full moon is that it's at 29 degrees Capricorn. Sometimes you'll see that with a newer full moon. If it takes place in the very early degrees, like 0 or 1, maybe 2 degrees of a zodiac sign, then we might get another new moon or full moon in that same zodiac sign. This is probably going over some people's heads, but follow along as best as you can. The reason why this is so powerful, I mean, of course, any full moon is powerful, but what I don't think people are realizing is that this full moon takes place at the exact same degree and the same zodiac sign as Pluto will be at during November 5th for the election day. Okay, so it's almost like the full moon is shining her light and almost like putting, if you think of like a orange cone that they use for their street work or whatever, road work, and it's like she's putting a cone there and boom, shining her light there. And then when we come up to the time for the election, that's where Pluto is going to be. So this is really, really strong stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this recording is I'm going to tell you how to work with this energy. Okay, as with any full moon, this is the peak of a growth cycle. A growth cycle that began approximately 6 months ago when we had a new moon in the sign of Capricorn. Over these 6 months, we've all been experiencing this opportunity for growth that's related to this sign of Capricorn. And this is really a time to honor that growth. This is also a time, if you may have picked up on some of this Capricorn energy that's just not serving you, this is a time to let that go as soon as the moon begins to wane. So it's like we're approaching this full moon, again, July 21st. The moon's getting fuller, fuller, fuller. So we're climbing up to that peak of that growth cycle. And then at 3:17 a.m. Pacific time on July 21st, then moon, she's in her fullest form. And then she starts to wane. She starts to get smaller. Okay, so when she starts to get smaller, we're just staying in the natural flow of things to let go of some of this Capricorn energy. Now, if you're somewhat familiar with your natal chart, if you've had a reading with me, you can look to see which area of your life this is specifically manifesting for you. Okay, is it coming through your house of career, your house of relationships, your house of money, your house of communication, your house of transformation, your house of karma, your house of health? Has to be coming through somewhere in your natal chart. Not only that, but do you have anything, any celestial body or planet or midpoint or whatever in any zodiac sign at 29 degrees, I can assure you that that thing in your natal chart is getting lit up for this full moon. Okay, and I will show you why. But again, what I'm going to do in this recording is I'm going to break down this sign of Capricorn for you in detail, so you really know what you're working with here. And, going back to that natal chart, if you're familiar with your natal chart, you can see what area of your life is coming through. If you're not familiar with your natal chart, don't worry about it. It's honestly like this is the kind of stuff that we learn in baby steps, but it is so massively beneficial to get familiar with your natal chart because it's just absolutely wild to watch these things play out. Okay, so I'm going to break down this sign of Capricorn for you. I will also be pulling up the chart and showing you all these other really wild and prominent astrological forces we are receiving for this full moon. And then I'm also going to be talking a little bit about medical astrology, like what parts of the body are ruled by the sign of Capricorn, because these parts of our body become more sensitive anytime anything up in the sky transits through the sign of Capricorn. But this is a full moon at 29 degrees. If you're not familiar with this, 29 degrees is the anaretic degree. That's the last degree of a zodiac sign. So it's like extra powerful. Okay. So it's a good idea to pay a little extra attention to these parts of our body because they just become a little more sensitive when we're experiencing this kind of transit. So of course, I'll be mentioning some potential herbal remedies to help support these parts of our body. And I will also be talking about gemstones that resonate well with the sign of Capricorn. As many of you know, I always like to pull out my journal anytime we have a full moon. I pull out my journal. Been doing this for what was it, since 2016, I think. I've been writing down in my journal the growth that I'm grateful for, that I'm experienced, that's related to that zodiac sign. And I write down what I want to let go of. And then I like to take a few gemstones that resonate well with that zodiac sign or just the overall astrological forces we're receiving, put them on top of my journal and leave them there, for the night of that full moon. Now, please do not feel, like you're missing out on something if you don't have any of these gemstones. I always leave a full extensive list of stones that resonate well with the sign the moon is transiting through in the description below here on YouTube. But again, please do not feel discouraged if you don't have any of these gemstones, honestly. And, getting into the gemstone talk, really, there is a very strong tie between certain gemstones and particular planets, particular zodiac signs, and that sort of thing. But that's real. I mean, if you're getting into the depth of the Upaye system in medical astrology, that stuff is very, very real. But a lot of it is also just very metaphysical. Okay. So it's like really working more with your intention rather than trying to rely on a gemstone. Okay. So I don't want anybody to feel like they have to go out and buy gemstones for this sort of thing to work out. All right. So there's that. Let's get rolling with this. So the sign of Capricorn is what we call the cardinal earth sign. When I say cardinal, what I'm talking about is a force that comes through. Okay. Especially forceful at 29 degrees, a force that comes through, but it's in the element of earth. So with that said, it's like, there's a cardinal fire sign, Aries, which is like Aries overexert themselves because it's fire and it's forceful. But cardinal earth is a little more strategic about things. All the earth signs tend to kind of be good at taking things in stride. The sign of Capricorn will set a goal and go after it without just, barreling through everything. It's more like, okay, I got to get through this with some consistency, but force at the same time. Now, also in that element of earth, this is a grounded energy. It's a very stable energy. The sign of Capricorn, well, it's ruled by Saturn. Okay. Saturn is the influencer of things that are of a practical, serious, productive nature. Okay. Saturn is really like the influencer of taking care of our responsibilities and productivity. Saturn is, again, a very serious energy. And please do not get me wrong. I'm not by any means suggesting that every single person who's a Capricorn is going to be, super serious about life. I have plenty of very silly Capricorn friends. And you guys know how I'm talking about some of you ladies out there. Maybe it's, your Sagittarius rising or something like that. But the sign of Capricorn in and of itself, it's really very much associated with ambition, being the cardinal, again, forceful, earth, stable, zodiac sign that is ruled by Saturn, which Saturn's kind of like the builder. Okay. In fact, the motto for the sign of Capricorn is I use, and I will say this, I've actually heard in a couple books, more modern astrology books, the motto I build for the sign of Capricorn, but I think it's traditionally I use. It's like using what you have in your environment to build with. Okay. It's not about, oh, I need to buy this first before I can make this happen. This is about, let's say you're trying to build a business, and I'm not talking about necessarily just with like building things with a hammer and nails. It could be just an online business, an entrepreneurship or something like that. Okay. That Capricorn energy says, what do I have to work with here that I can build with? And once you build that, first floor, speaking hypothetically, build that first floor and it's nice and stable and sturdy, then you can add on a second floor. Okay. Then that second floor is done because it's like you're building with this kind of energy. Very, very strong. Okay. The sign of Capricorn is represented by the mountain goat. Okay. Most commonly represented by the mountain goat. In real ancient traditional astrology, it's a sea goat. But I think that it helps people understand this Capricorn energy if we stick with the mountain goat. The mountain goat that will like just take advantage of every foothold to get to the top of the mountain and be on top. For some reason, I love watching videos of these mountain goats climbing up mountains. It's just so incredibly fascinating. What an incredible creature mountain goats are. Okay, so it's like they want to get to the top of the mountain, and be on top. Okay, be on top like a boss. The sign of Capricorn is really kind of like the boss of the zodiac. It's very strongly associated with things like authority. In fact, if you're somewhat familiar with the zodiac, and well, I might be able to point this out a little bit later. When we picture the zodiac, the circle, okay, in a natural zodiac, the sign of Capricorn is on top. It's on the very top of the chart, which that top of the chart is really like the part of the chart that rules over status and recognition and being the boss and, making your way to the top, that sort of thing. So really, how have you grown in these ways? What have you been building? What have you been working with? What have you been using that's in your environment to build? I know so many people, it's probably because of my career, but I know so many people who are building their own business. And again, I'm not even talking about it, having to go rent a building and all that. I have plenty of friends who do that as well. But building an online business, that sort of thing. Okay, so how have you grown in these ways? But also, is there any of this Capricorn energy that just may not be serving you? Okay, and what I'm talking about here, really, when it comes to the sign of Capricorn, it's like this. I'm one certain client is coming to mind who she is just absolute sweetheart. I adore this woman to pieces, but she has admitted to me, like confidentially, that she's Capricorn. I think she's also got her moon in Capricorn, but she has admitted to me that she's actually one who's building her own business. And she's admitted to me that without thinking about it, it's not something that she's, thinking, oh, I'm going to do this in a mean way or something, but it's more like she wants to make it to the top. She wants that success. She wants this business to work out. And sometimes she'll find herself almost, kind of pushing people out of the way, not physically pushing them, but kind of getting people out of the way that might be preventing her from getting to the top. Let's say there's another individual who has the same kind of business and she doesn't want that person to do better than her, then she'll kind of almost manipulate a situation to try and get to the top. I actually know quite a few Capricorns that have had that kind of thing occur in their life. So if that's something, that's really, for some people, very much human nature, but I don't think it's necessarily the kindest or most compassionate way to go about life. And so that's something to keep in mind. Maybe there's this underlying a little bit too much ambition or that sort of thing going on. If that's the case, which I don't think that's the case for most people, but if you have something like that going on, you might want to let that go. We want, this is teamwork. We're going into the age of Aquarius. We want us all to make it to the top, okay? When I say we are going into the age of Aquarius. The sign of Aquarius is really, but the sign of humanitarianism, okay? We all do this together sort of thing. Okay, so there's that. How have you grown in these ways and what do you want to let go of? Hopefully I described the sign of Capricorn enough for you so you really got it in your head. And not only that, but again, look to see in your natal chart. If you had a reading with me, you can just go back and review the video recording. Look to see which house in your natal chart the sign of Capricorn comes through. If you're working with Placidus or equal sign, this could get a little tricky because it is the 29th degree. If you're working with the whole sign house system, just look to see which house in your natal chart the sign of Capricorn rules. When it comes to these lunar transits, I really like working with the whole sign house system. But again, if you're working with equal sign or whatever, then you're going to specifically want to see where that last degree, what house, this is the 29th degree of Capricorn comes through in your own natal chart and build off of that. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up the chart here. Okay, so for those of you who are new to my recordings, I work with geocentric Western astrology. So with that said, what we're looking at here is a snapshot of what we would call the tropical zodiac at the time of this full moon. So what we do is we put Earth right here in the middle of this thing. These are over here, the planets, okay, the symbols for the planets, like this is Saturn, this is Neptune, this is something called the North Node, this is Chiron, this is Uranus, this is Mars, this is Jupiter. When we go in the wheel just a little ways, these are the symbols for the zodiac signs that all these things would be beaming through onto Earth at the time of this full moon. Okay, and these bigger numbers here, these are the degrees. In fact, let's start over here. Let's talk about the moon. Oh my gosh, I even forgot that the moon's going to transit over Pluto. Whoa, I can't wait to talk about this. So here's the moon right here. Symbol for the moon's very easy because it just looks like a crescent moon. And I do encourage you guys, if you really want to learn this stuff, I do encourage, just go to astro.com, or there's so you can get, what I'm using is a software that's called Time Passages, which I really, really like. You can get actually a free version of Time Passages, the app, on your phone or your tablet. On the computer, it's a little more expensive. They might offer some sort of free package, but regardless, if astro.com, there's a lot of other free websites that they just let you do this stuff for free. But I encourage you to look this stuff up for yourself and get, if you're trying to learn astrology. If you're not, then don't worry about it. But this right here is a symbol for the moon. And this right here is saying 29 degrees. Okay, this right here is the symbol for the sign of Capricorn. These little numbers here are the minutes. Okay, so this is 29 degrees and 9 minutes. Capricorn is where this full moon is at. So, and also I'll point this out as well. If you do take the time to look this stuff up for yourself, and see, I live in Santa Cruz Mountains of California. If you live in, say, a different time zone, wherever it is, East Coast or whatever, then the moon might not be exactly in this part of the zodiac. It's still going to be at 29 degrees Capricorn. All these planets and celestial bodies and these diagonal points will all be at the same degree in the same zodiac sign, but the whole, based on your location, your time zone, the whole chart can turn. Okay, so hopefully there's no confusion there. But we see the moon here at 29 degrees, 9 minutes. Now, part of the reason that full moons are always so powerful is because what we see over here is the sun at 29 degrees Cancer. It's the symbol for the sign of Cancer. Now, that you see, the sun and the moon are exactly opposite each other. And I'm sorry if I'm repetitive to people who watch my recordings regularly, because this is just stuff I really, really like to teach. But to those of you who are new here, this is what happens every time of a full moon. The sun and the moon are exactly opposite each other. Now, these are the two brightest lights in the sky. So when we have that full moon, it's like they are facing each other and they are embracing all of this growth. Okay, now, okay, let's go over here to the sun. This is the 29th degree of the sign of Cancer. So the day after this full moon, the sun will move into the sign of Leo. This is the sign of Leo right here. I can't wait to make the new moon in Leo video. Leo happens to be I love the sign of Leo. Love all the zodiac signs for all different reasons, but the sun just gets very excited. The sun moves into the sign of Leo. We'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, so, and again, I don't mean to put so much emphasis on this, but it really is a big deal. The 29th degree of any zodiac sign is like an extra force. Sometimes it can feel even a little confusing, but it's overall very, very powerful. Okay, now, in fact, I got to go back up here to the moon for a minute. So this is what I'm talking about. When the time of the elections comes around, not just on November 5th, but on November 5th, it's like the week or two surrounding November 5th, Pluto will be, this is Pluto right here. I'm going to talk about Pluto in a minute. Pluto will be at 29 degrees Capricorn. That Pluto is the influencer of power and transformation and death and rebirth. Okay, now let's go into this because, like I said, it's like the moon, she's marking that spot. Okay, and what's this right here is Pluto, which is currently at 0 degrees Aquarius, 0 degrees and 55 minutes, but in retrograde. Okay, Pluto is moving backwards. See, everything goes this way. Well, hope this doesn't confuse very many. I hope this doesn't confuse you guys. But they go around the zodiac in this direction. Okay, the sun, the moon, everything goes this direction unless it's in retrograde. If it's in retrograde, then it goes backwards. So here's Pluto, and here is where it's yellow. That's the sign of Aquarius. Right here is the sign of Capricorn. Pluto is going to move backwards back into the sign of Capricorn, where Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008. And basically Pluto kind of, I'm going too much detail here, but Pluto moved into the sign of Aquarius and then retrograded back to Capricorn and then moved into the sign of Aquarius. Pluto's just been doing this little dance between the sign of Aquarius and the sign of Capricorn, which is a very big deal, okay? Because, all right, the sign of Capricorn actually rules authority. Like I said, it's the boss. The sign of Capricorn, out of all the zodiac signs, is the sign that's most directly associated with things like government, okay, or authoritative establishments, okay? And again, we're talking about the 29th degree here. So Pluto, if you can imagine, Pluto, the light that comes from Pluto, the beams, the rays that Pluto shoots out, bring things that are of a very, very powerful nature. Like basically, Pluto's kind of the destroyer. Okay, and I know it sounds scary, but it's not like Pluto ever goes away. We're constantly experiencing Pluto's energy, but sometimes he's more powerful than others. And Pluto is the slowest moving out of all the planets, out of everything up there. Pluto takes 248 years to go around the whole entire zodiac. Okay, so with that said, when Pluto changes a zodiac sign, and Pluto is often referred to as a planet of power, okay, it's even more powerful. And not only that, but Pluto, like currently, is in retrograde. Won't be in retrograde at the time of the election. But when Pluto's in retrograde, he's even more aggressive. Okay, Pluto is Hades in Greek mythology. Hades is the ruler of the underworld. Okay, and that's what the kind of energy that we receive from Pluto to destroy things, but for the purpose of like rebuilding something. I'm using the word build because we're talking about the sign of Capricorn here. Like degeneration and then regeneration. That's what Pluto does. When you think about a plant or a flower or whatever, when it dies and decomposes, that's a Plutonian energy, okay? But then it comes back, and often if we give nutrients to the soil that that flower is growing in, it will grow back even more beautiful and more powerful than the flower that was there before. That's what Pluto's job is. That's why Pluto's considered the planet of power, okay? Because it's certainly not like Pluto just goes around and hands out power to whoever Pluto wants to. No, it has to destroy something first. Excuse me. And so with that said, it's like, whoa, think about these elections and think about, what just happened with the Donald Trump shooting and all kinds of crazy stuff that's going on involving our our government, our authoritarian establishments. Okay, that is what's going on here. And so not only that, but just about 3.5 hours after this full moon, the moon is going to, she's going to transit over Pluto. And she's, she's full. She's going to start to be winged, but she'll still be basically in her fullest form for at least, the next few hours after this full moon. But the moon distributes. That's what she does when she goes over, when she transits over, because the moon goes so much faster than everything else. The moon goes around the zodiac every single month. So and like I'm saying, she goes faster than all these other things. So every single month she passes these things up. And as she transits or passes over a planet or whatever it is, she distributes more of the energy of whatever that influence of that planet or celestial body is. Okay, hope I'm making sense here. I understand it's probably really complicated if you're new to this stuff. But this is just, whoa, really strong energy. And, like I'm saying, I like to talk about how to work with this energy on a personal level, as individuals. It's so important to understand that we all experience every single astrological force as a collective, but it's also incredibly unique to each and every one of us. Okay, so this is, for some people, this could be, something, this full moon, and really just this whole year of 2024 could be something that is just kicking your butt. For some people, it could be opening up whole new doors and opportunities for people. It just depends on your own natal chart. And again, that's why it's in part so beneficial to get familiar with our natal chart. Okay, so this 29th degree, let's talk more about this. So sun's at 29 degrees Cancer, the anaretic degree of Cancer, the last day of Cancer season, and the moon's at 29 degrees Capricorn. Well, over here, we have Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces. Okay, so Neptune, it's like, that's what I'm saying is if you have any planets or what, it doesn't matter what it is, an asteroid or a midpoint at 29 degrees of any zodiac sign, either the moon or Neptune or the sun are beaming their rays at that thing in some way, shape, or form, whether it be a square or a trine or a quincunx, or maybe potentially even, you know, a septile, a quintile, whatever it is. It could be beaming any kind of ray towards that thing. Okay, so this, and when I'm talking about that, again, this is so confusing to people who are new here. I'm talking about these lines that go through the natal chart. Okay, let's get into this. So here's Neptune. Let's start with Neptune. Digressing here. Neptune is the influencer of dreams and mysticism and spirituality, altered states of consciousness, drugs. Neptune influences psychic powers. Neptune is, you know, when we see people who are, you know, like a Grateful Dead concert, obviously that's not happening anymore, but maybe like a Fish concert or something like that. And everybody's, you know, they're dancing around like fairies and just kind of in their own world and that sort of thing. That's very Neptunian, okay? Or drum circles, or drum circles can also be influenced from other celestial bodies as well. But just like the supernatural, Neptune breaks down our, you know, we all have these boundaries. We all here have these, some people, there's stronger boundaries than others, certainly, but we all have certain kinds of boundaries, okay? And Neptune puts holes in those boundaries and basically opens us up to psychic forces, okay? When somebody has a very strong Neptune in their natal chart, they tend to be very psychic, okay? So Neptune influences those things, and guess what? Neptune rules the sign of Pisces. So Neptune is in full force right now. The sign of Pisces is the sign of mysticism and spirituality and has no boundaries, and is the sign that has a lot to do with escapism and drugs and that sort of thing. So Neptune is just really strong right now at the 29th degree in retrograde in the sign of Pisces. This is really wild stuff. Okay, and if you notice, let's go back to those rays that I'm talking about, the beams from one celestial body to another. Here's Neptune. Over here is the sun at 29 degrees Cancer. Pisces, 29 degrees Pisces. Pisces is a water sign. Cancer is a water sign. They're both water signs. So with that said, these blue lines, and they're always these are called aspects. All the lines going to the natal chart are called aspects, and they're not, like I said, I'm using time passages. If you go to whatever website, astrology website, the colors of the aspects are probably not going to be the same as this, but using this software, we see these blue lines approximately 120 degree angle. It's pretty darn close to being an exact 120 degree angle. It's basically like the sun is in this sensitive sign of Cancer, the sign of I feel. It's all about emotions and sensitivities and empathy. And okay, the sun is beaming his rays up to Neptune here. That's what that blue line is. It's called the trine. They're harmonizing, okay? And it softens the energy significantly because, see, the water signs are really the signs of true empathy, okay? These are the empaths. That doesn't mean that you have to be a water sign to be an empath, but they're just by nature, whether they like it or not, they pick up on other people's energies. If somebody else is in a cruddy mood, it's going to put them in a cruddy mood, that sort of thing. They tend to be sensitive to picking up all sorts of things. But they're also kind of the mystics of the zodiac, okay? Again, that doesn't mean if you're not a water sign that you can't be a mystic, because there's so much more in the natal chart. That have a busy 12th house, even if it's in the sign of Taurus or something like that, you can still be totally mystical. But this is lovely. this is absolutely lovely. But again, what I'm talking about, so these aspects, so if you've got any, let's say you've got Mercury in the sign of Taurus at 29 degrees, just as an example here, that would mean, here's the sign of Taurus, that would mean that Neptune would be beaming what's called a sextile, an opportunistic connection at that Mercury, and the sun would also be beaming an opportunistic connection at that Mercury. Doesn't matter what zodiac sign it's in, if it's even between, say, 28 and 29 degrees, whatever that thing is, it's getting lit up with this full moon, because all these things that are at 29 degrees. You might notice this guy up here, this called the midheaven, is also at 29 degrees, but that's based on my location, so I'm not going to go into that. Okay, let's see here. I really feel like I hope people are going to follow along with this one. Let's talk about, let's go over to Mercury here. So here's Mercury going through the sign of Leo. I'm so excited. The day after this full moon, don't get me wrong, I love the sign of Cancer. I happen to love it, but it just happens to land in my 8th house. So it's a little bit of a, usually a little bit of a doozy for me. Even though I love it, my moon and my Mars are in the sign of Cancer. But every time the sun moves into the sign of Leo, I'm like, what? Middle of the summer, my 9th house is lit up. So here we have Venus and Mercury, and the day after this full moon, we'll also have the sun in Leo. So this sign of Leo is really getting some activity going on. Okay, let's start with Mercury. Mercury rules our mental function, our communication skills, our nervous system. Okay, and in the sign of Leo, Leo's the sign of courage. Leo's the leader of the zodiac. Leo's really like that. It's represented by the lion. And if you think about a lion is clearly very playful, but also very, very courageous. Okay. Lions can be ferocious. The sign of Leo can be ferocious. But generally speaking, it's Leo rules the heart. Leo tends to be a very joyful kind of energy. So when we've got the ruler of our mental function and our communication skills going through the sign of Leo, it's like all those things are excited. Our nervous system's excited, but it's a fixed fire sign. So it's not antsy kind of excited. It's more like, hey, what's going on over here? I'm paying attention to this. Let's do this. Might find yourself wanting to chit chat a little bit more than usual, especially if you've got something near 26 degrees Leo in your natal chart. And then over here, we've got Venus in the sign of Leo. Okay, so Venus did a big retrograde in the sign of Leo last year, but this year, so Venus is the influencer of love, and beauty, and harmony, and relationships, anything that is aesthetically pleasing. Venus is Aphrodite, okay, the very like lovely energy, very, people are very drawn to Venusian energy, meaning Venus energy. And here we have that playful sign of Leo. A lot of times when people are born with their Venus in Leo, they'll like, they see a person that they like, whether it's like a romantic attraction or whatever, even if it's just kind of like a playful attraction, they'll just walk up, put their arm around that person and just start talking. Yeah, that's a courageous attraction, courageous play, courageous love, that sort of thing. Venus and Leo can also have a tendency to like extravagance. Okay, so look to see your chart if you've got something near 11 degrees Leo and realize that Venus is the planet of love coming through this sign of just grand royalty is beaming right on that thing in your chart. So that's a placement that I really like. Okay, now let's go on to, let's talk about Mars. Okay, so how deep should I go here? Let's just, we already talked in the last recording, we talked a lot about how Mars is, in fact, the day that I'm making this video, or tomorrow, that Mars and Uranus will be exactly conjunct. Okay, if you missed, I put out a recording about the Trump shooting. That is, here's Mars and here's Uranus. Mars is aggressive, could even be kind of considered like rageful. Mars rules things like guns. Mars rules things like an engine, just like firing up. Mars rules things like fire. Mars is a hot and dry energy, okay? And fast and furious. And here's Uranus, which is unpredictable and bizarre and wacky and rules over things that are like disruptive to electric fields or or EMF kind of energy, okay? And Mars, this little thing with the, I don't mean to laugh, it's not funny, but it's just when you understand astrology and you watch these things play out, it has to be a little bit comical. But Mars caught up to Uranus, and boom, we have this whole, thing that goes on for the United States. But now Mars is past Uranus. Mars is past Uranus and working a little more independently, at least for a little while, until Mars catches up to Jupiter. But Mars is at 0 degrees Gemini. Okay, so Mars, again, like aggression, Mars is ready to go. And we all have Mars somewhere in our natal chart. Whatever zodiac sign Mars is being into when we're born, we'll say a lot about how we put things into action. Okay, and the sign of Gemini is all about mental function. Okay, the sign of Gemini, the motto is I think. It's also the sign of communication. It's ruled by Mercury. I was talking about how Mercury is the influencer of our mental function and our nervous system and that sort of thing. Well, Mercury rules Gemini. That's what makes Gemini like that. Gemini is a very, very intellectual energy, but very much nervous system and mental function. Well, think about Mars, raw, going through those things that roll over our nervous system and our mental function. Okay, Mars in Gemini is very, very excitable. Mars, people who are born with Mars in Gemini can tend to be very fun, sociable, kind of bouncy people that they're ready to, not all of them, because there's so much more to the natal chart, but a lot of people I noticed with Mars in Gemini. I've got a few family members who have their Mars in Gemini, and it's so funny to watch them because they're like, okay, gotta go do this and do that. And that's what Mars in Gemini is like, especially at 0 degrees Gemini. 0 degrees, basically, there's certain degrees in the zodiac that are more prominent or more powerful than other degrees. And some of that will depend on the zodiac sign itself. But just as a general rule of thumb, 0 degrees, because it's like, that's when that, like the floodgates for that zodiac sign, like Mars just entered this sign of Gemini. So it's like, if you think about this energy, it's just really strong. It's just really, really forceful at 0 degrees. And again, also that 29th degree. So it's like basically the first, leading into a zodiac sign, and also when a planet is leaving a zodiac sign. So Mars is really, really strong right now for this full moon. And here we have, boom, these trines, these more blue lines, these 120-degree angles. This is another one that's basically exact up to Pluto. Okay, picture that energy that I just talked about. Mars being, I gotta go. I got things to do. I got action to take in the sign that rules over mental function and communication, nervous system sort of thing. And then beaming these like, hey, let's play kind of energy towards Pluto, the destroyer. Okay, these are both air signs. The motto for the sign of Gemini is I think. The motto for the sign of Aquarius here, where Pluto is I know. Okay, so these are both very, very, very hyper intellectual energies. And we've got 2 very aggressive planets beaming through these things, and they're having a conversation at the time. This is really, really powerful stuff, you guys. Look to see if you got anything in your chart near 0 degrees. Really, really strong one would be either 0 degrees Aquarius, Gemini, or Libra. Also 0 degrees Sagittarius, 0 degrees Leo. Just really kind of, again, anything at 0 degrees. These things are probably making some kind of a connection with that thing in your natal chart. Okay, let's go back up to Uranus here for a minute. So yeah, Uranus is going through the sign of Taurus, say another year and a half. Uranus influences revolutionary changes. Uranus, like I said, if you picture somebody almost like getting electrocuted or something like that, that's Uranus energy. Uranus it disrupts the electrical fields in the body. Uranus is very like wants things to change abruptly. Okay, and going to the sign Taurus doesn't want things to change abruptly. Taurus is steadfast. It's like the slowest, calmest sign of the zodiac. So this is a very debilitated placement. It's been going on since 2018, basically. And so there's a lot of really big changes going on, especially when that Mars Uranus conjunction is going on. It's just, I mean, really, really powerful stuff. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time on that one because we've talked about it for so long in so many other videos. So let's move on here to Jupiter, which is now at 12 degrees Gemini. Okay, so Jupiter, the great benefic, Jupiter, the bringer of luck and abundance and wisdom and philosophy and long distance travel. Jupiter likes to be like the publisher of things far and wide. Okay, likes to learn about other cultures and how things work in completely other parts of the world. It's very Jupiter energy, great expander. Going through the sign of Gemini, which again, Gemini is, I think, Gemini must pay attention to facts. It's like Jupiter's big energy. Gemini's really, I gotta pay attention. What's the little, I gotta pay attention to all these little mathematical equations sort of thing. So that's a very, very interesting transit. Jupiter's going to Gemini until June of 2025. Okay, look to see if you got anything near 12 degrees Gemini. Jupiter might be lighting that thing up for you right now. Okay, let's move on to Saturn. Okay, Saturn is like the lord of this full moon, because again, Saturn rules Capricorn, the full moon's in the sign of Capricorn. Not only that, but very quickly, just 3 hours after this full moon, the moon moves into the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is also in part ruled by Saturn. So Saturn's really, really strong for this transit. Again, he's like the captain of this full moon. And Saturn is at 19 degrees Pisces retrograde. Okay, so again, this is not what we just talked about so much already, but Saturn, wants structure, Saturn just doesn't want things to change. Saturn wants things to stay the same and do things, but just build off of that and in a very structured and responsible and disciplined way. Sign of Pisces, again, is the mystic. Sign of Pisces is like, oh, my responsibilities lie with spirituality, okay? And that doesn't mean everybody who's Pisces is going to be like that, but the sign of Pisces in and of itself, it certainly is. Okay, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's a sign that's already experienced all the other energies. It's done here, that sort of thing. A lot of Pisces people, you'll see them saying things like, I feel like I don't belong here, like I'm born in the wrong time, or I just don't fit in this world. That's very Piscean energy. Well, Saturn belongs in this world. Saturn's like earthly, you take care of your work sort of thing. So it's a very bizarre transit. Saturn's going through Pisces until March of, end of February 2026. So we still got a little whiles to go here, but Saturn's also really strong because he's in retrograde. Oh boy, I've got a dear sweet friend who's got a son at 19 degree Pisces, and she said as soon as Saturn went retrograde, she felt like things were being taken away from her. Okay, Saturn going through Pisces can actually like enhance or bring the sorrows of the world into the conscious awareness. And I do understand there's a lot of people who are really, really emotional what just happened, with the candidate for the elections. Okay, Mr. Donald Trump. Some people think it's hilarious, but whatever. Everybody just got their own. We just gotta deal with everybody's opinions. I don't like the fact that people just argue about this stuff so much. So it's a lot of acceptance needs to be developed, I think, in people. And Saturn and Pisces might even do that over this next year and a half or so. But just keep in mind, if you got something near in your chart near 19 degrees Pisces, and in fact, Saturn's going to be at 19 degrees Pisces all the way till the very end of July, and then we'll be at 18 degrees Pisces for another while too. So Saturn's moving slowly in retrograde. You got something near, say, 19 degrees Pisces or Virgo, or even Cancer or Scorpio, then Saturn might be trying to get you some discipline in life. Even it might be just spiritual discipline, taking your spiritual practices very, very seriously, or getting like working on your intuition, trying to really tap into that sort of thing. I know I've been reading a lot of comments on my YouTube channel from people who are talking about their intuition, and they had these experiences where they have almost foreseen what's going on, and then it happens, that sort of thing. Well, it very well could be something, either Neptune or Saturn is hitting something in your chart that is really taking those things to the next level. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about Chiron here. Chiron going through the sign of Aries. That's also another couple of years. This is Chiron, year and a half, something like that. Chiron, the wounded healer, which Chiron can also have a lot to do with kind of, well, wounds that come from, there's so many ways I can explain this, but I don't want to confuse anybody. The wounds that come from early childhood. And as we experience a Chiron transit, Chiron wants us to heal those wounds. Okay, it's like karma, like working on healing. I just watched a wonderful video from a friend of mine who she really went deep into her childhood. And she's somebody who's, I'm 46 years old, she's older than me, and she was talking about something, she had this whole download, like this whole process of something that happened with her mother from childhood. And you know, she's like, I never even realized this before. This is somebody who's done so much work for herself to overcome, you know, trauma and just heal overall. And all of a sudden she's had this like full-on breakthrough from healing her childhood in, I don't know how old she is, but I just know she's older than me. That's a Chiron kind of transit. Okay, Chiron's like, let's go way deep into those buried wounds. Let's pull them out, let's heal them. And Chiron's really strong in the sign of Aries. Aries is the sign of self. Aries is the warrior. Aries is like, oh, let's do this. Let's heal this, man. So look to see if you've got anything near 23 degrees Aries or Libra in your natal chart. I say Libra because it's opposite over here. So that anything that's opposite, there's all kinds of aspects that can go on that trigger things in the chart. Okay, lastly, the nodes. And so here we have the North Node at 9 degrees Aries. These nodes are moving slow. Oh my goodness. So the North Node, as many of you know, pumps energy in. The nodes they're almost always in retrograde. They go backwards through the chart. The North Node is pumping that Aries energy in. You've got something in your natal chart near 9 degrees Aries. There's a lot of maybe even aggressive energy being pumped onto that thing right now, and it's going to go on for like another 3 months or so. And then we've got the South Node in Libra, that's the drain point. The South Node is what takes things away. Okay, so that is, and I know I've said this before, but some people may be new here. Sign of Libra is a sign of justice. Okay, Libra is a sign of balance. It's the scales. It wants things to be fair. And we've got the drain point, the South Node, like draining out that Libra energy for us all the way until January of next year. So it's like, in my opinion, I just want that South Node out of Libra. I don't like it there. It just might be a biased opinion, but regardless, look to see if you've got anything near. I mean, the benefit of this, okay, that what could be nice about this, let's say you've got something near 9 degrees Libra in your natal chart. What you would want to do is take that celestial body, let's say it's Jupiter, okay? Let's just come up with an example. Jupiter is a great benefic, Jupiter is charitable, Jupiter likes to give, okay? So let's say that South Node is on your Jupiter. Your Jupiter is at 9 degrees Libra, so the South Node up in the sky is on that Jupiter. Well, it might be draining out some of your luck and your abundance and your, you know, your ability to accumulate things, your ability to bring in all kinds of wisdom. But a way to kind of work through that sort of transit and benefit from it is by willingly giving things away. Do something that's charitable to your community. Maybe go out and pick up some trash, or you know, whatever it is, walk dogs for people, or somehow involve yourself in you know, offering your time and your energy for free. That can very much be helpful if you've got something near 9 degrees Libra. Okay, I think I covered everything there. Let's move on to, yeah, I covered everything there. Okay, let's move on to body parts. So the sign of Capricorn rules mostly the knees. Okay, the knees, really also the whole skeleton, also even has an influence on the teeth. Strangely, the sign of Capricorn also has an influence on the gallbladder. Okay, so we might want to be really careful with these parts of our body. If you've already got sensitive knees, I know I do. I was a runner when I was younger. I just have really sensitive knees. And I do notice when we got a lot of like strong Capricorn energy going on, like a full moon in Capricorn or whatever, back in 2020. Oh my gosh, my knees will kill me. I have so much Capricorn energy going on. But it's just a good idea to be a little bit careful with these parts of our body. But also the sign of Capricorn it's like dry. It's a dry energy. A lot of people have got, say you've got your sun, especially if you got your sun and your moon or something like that in the sign of Capricorn, you might deal with dry skin. And that's something that may happen to all, especially if you've got something that is getting hit by this full moon in your natal chart, you might be experiencing some dry skin. In fact, I just saw a post from somebody today who was talking about they got the dry skin. Fortunately, this person happened to know how to manage it with herbs, other than just, applying moisturizer. Okay, so let's start here. Let's start with burdock. Burdock root is so detoxifying. Burdock root is powerful. You can juice it, which is like, whoa, kind of gnarly if you're going to drink fresh burdock juice. But you can, most people make a tea with it. You can also make a tincture with it. And what the burdock root does is it opens up the lipid channels, which in turn then brings the oils in the body to the surface of the skin, making the skin more naturally moisturized. Okay, then another one, chickweed. Chickweed can actually, it's like delivers the fluids or the oils to the cells, okay, to help keep things hydrated in the body. And another one I want to mention, I mean, there's so many things we could go on and on and on. These are, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not offering any kind of medical advice whatsoever. These are things that I've learned through the Academy for Astrological Medicine. And just several books. A lot of Judith Hill books will go into this stuff. Matthew Wood has fantastic Earthwise Repertory, which is a really, really, really informative book involving herbs and how to use them and that sort of thing. But going back to, okay, mullein. Most people who are herbalists or know a little bit, I got strange light on my face here. Most people who know a little bit about herbs know about mullein, and they know that it's really good for the lungs. I came down with something horrible. Some of you already know this. I was on a cruise, a family reunion with my family. And when we all got home from the cruise, all of us got sick. And I've just been struggling getting stuff out of my lungs. Probably haven't been taking enough of my mullein tinctures and that sort of thing. But mullein is really good for the lungs, for like pulling gunk out of the lungs. But also what it does is it brings like moisture to the lungs, okay? And it also will basically deliver fluids to between the discs in the back. All this stuff is just bringing moisture into the body so that we're not walking around with super dry skin. Okay, so there's that. Let's talk about gemstones. This right here, well, actually, no, let's the dedicated zodiacal birthstone for the sign of Capricorn is garnet. So right here is a piece of garnet, which garnet is great. Garnet is grounding. It's powerful. It's a wonderful stone. Not like that, but it's not not outrageous. It's pretty affordable unless you're buying some sort of really wild piece of garnet. But garnet is a really, really nice stone. I like garnet because I don't have any Capricorn energy in my natal chart except for Juno. I've got Juno and Capricorn, but that's it. So that said, I like to work with garnet. I feel like it helps to keep me grounded. It helps me, use that I use motto for the sign of Capricorn. It's more like a productive kind of energy that we receive from garnet. But another one I want to mention here is malachite. Malachite resonates really, really well with the sign of Capricorn. Not only that, but malachite is just a really protective stone. There's a lot of copper in malachite. It's a wonderful stone. It's like if you're trying to decide, like, let's say you're thinking to yourself, gosh, I really would like to get, a couple stones for my house, some minerals for my house or whatever. I would consider a piece of malachite because it's like, reliable. Malachite, and not only that, but again, it not only resonates beautifully with the sign of Capricorn, but it also resonates very, very well with a lot of other zodiac signs. So malachite is, I'm going to work with those stones. Another one that a lot of people already have is smoky quartz. I didn't bring mine down, but there's actually a piece right there behind me. That's a piece of smoky quartz. Smoky quartz is great. I mean, if you walk into any crystal shop, you're going to find smoky quartz. It's protective, but also amplifying. That's one of my favorite things. That also goes for amethyst, which amethyst, you can also work with amethyst for this full moon, because that moon is moving into the sign. Amethyst is Aquarius's birthstone. And since the moon is moving into the sign of Aquarius just hours after this full moon peaks, amethyst could work really beautifully for this full moon as well. But smoky quartz is more kind of directly associated with Capricorn. But it's a really, again, smoky quartz. And again, you can buy affordable pieces. You can buy tiny little pieces of, smoky quartz for probably like $1, that sort of thing, if you're just getting started and dabbling with these things. Okay, the last one I want to mention, which I don't actually possess on my own here, is blue sapphire, which is going back into the medical astrology and the modifies system that I mentioned in the beginning of this thing. Blue sapphire is Saturn's stone. Saturn is Capricorn's ruler. When we think about Saturn's energy, it's cold, it brings things in, it's astringent, it's dry. Okay, so with that said, some people, blue sapphire could be fantastic for some people, especially if you're a Capricorn rising and Saturn is in a really good place in your natal chart. You could have Saturn in the 12th and the sign of Libra. That'd be if you're a Capricorn, right? Well, no, that wouldn't work out. Regardless, if you're a Capricorn rising and you've got Saturn in a good place in your natal chart, a blue sapphire could be a really, really good stone for you. But then if you've got a really screwy, debilitated Saturn in your chart, blue sapphire might not be the best stone for you. But then also on the other side of that, let's say you're dealing with some serious inflammation. Let's say you've got some sort of, something in your neck. Something's inflamed. We're talking about knees, Capricorn rules the knees. You've got like a serious knee problem. It's super inflamed. That blue sapphire can help to bring that inflammation down, okay? Because it's cold and astringent. But it can also potentially, if for some people out there, the blue sapphire, because it's Saturn's stone, could create blockages, could create something that's what Saturn does. Again, like I told you, my friend who's got a 18 or 19 degree Pisces sun, Saturn is like taking things away from it. Saturn, he teaches really hard lessons. And so blue sapphire might not be the most ideal stone for every single person out there. So I just want to put that out there, but it's a gorgeous stone. One of these days, in fact, I had one a very long time ago that my mother gave to me, and I don't know what happened to it, and it breaks my heart every time I think about it. But I will get a blue sapphire at some point, but I probably wouldn't just wear it on my body on a regular basis. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave that there. I might have made this even a little too long. If you would like to schedule an astrology reading, please do visit erinwageastrology.com. I do hope to hear from some of you. And until next time, namaste to all of you.